Well, I'm stuck in my van waiting out a snow blizzard to see if I can still continue on with my plans. And I figured that while I'm parked here, I might as well come on live because I always loved coming and talking to you guys. Hopefully the internet connection is good enough where I am. So I wanted to talk about learning to read the Akashic Records as well as developing our psychic abilities, because I think a lot of you are interested in that based on the comments that I get and the messages that I get, etc. And I want to talk about some of the finer, subtler nuances of it, as always, because I feel like in those subtle nuances is where the next piece of understanding lies. So why would one learn to read the Akashic Records versus just developing your psychic abilities? And I say just developing your psychic abilities, and I don't mean that it's like somehow inferior, but I mean like general psychic ability development versus the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is the place, if you love solving puzzles, if you love putting the puzzle together, getting a little piece, figuring it out, making sense of it, putting it in its right spot, seeing more of the picture fill out, understanding things better, if you love that kind of stuff, then the Akashic Records are for you. It's kind of a one-stop shop where you find, I would say, everything you need, but when I say that, I mean, like, I have to openly acknowledge there are some things in the Akashic Records that I personally am more gifted at bringing forward than others, but that doesn't mean that the information I'm not strong at bringing forward isn't there. I would say everything is in the Akashic Records, and furthermore, everything in the Akashic Records is the truth of everything. Now, the caveat to that is that our human brains are limited in our ability to hold the truth and to hold all of the truth. I don't know. I don't know if a human mind can hold the whole entire truth. I'm not sure. I think probably not, but who am I to say that it's impossible? Certainly where I'm at right now, my human mind cannot hold all of the truth. And so even though the information that is the truth is contained in the Akashic Records, all the answers to everything ever, to your whole soul history, to galactic history, to planetary history, like all subjects, everything, even though all that is there, our minds are still limited in our ability to properly decode that information. And that's really more of what learning how to read the Akashic Records is about. And it's also really more of what psychic development is about. So that's the distinction. I'm just going to kind of talk about psychic development in general and weave the Akashic Records into it. But that's kind of the distinction I make about the Akashic Records and why they're so amazing. And if you are interested in psychic things, I just want to put a little plug in, like the Akashic Records is where you will find all the answers to everything at any point. So why not learn how to do that? But okay, psychic development in general. We have so many misunderstandings about what it actually is. I functioned under those misunderstandings for so long that I completely didn't realize for about 15 years of my life that I was psychic. I had no idea. I mean, I would have experiences, I'd have dreams, and I'd be like, wow, that was really interesting. I wonder what that was. But I wouldn't validate it as psychic information because I didn't understand how subtly that information comes in. So I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again because I think it bears repeating. Psychic information is not the same as physical information, but they both have the same source. And so they often interweave with each other. But when you're trying to obtain psychic information or tune into it, receive it, whatever, you're trying to develop your psychic gifts, expecting it to come through in what feels like the same way as physical information comes through is the wrong way to go about it. Because it's like we have to manage expectations with everything. If you expect it to come through in a way that is as sensually vivid and clear as, some physical information you're perceiving with your eyes or your nose or your ears or, whatever, your five senses, if you're expecting it to be like that, you're going to continually dismiss the very powerful psychic information you're already tuning into and receiving, because you don't realize that that's what it is. It's so subtle and it's so quiet in comparison to the information we receive through our physical senses that it takes practice to learn how to sort of disengage from your physical senses and switch your focus onto those subtler, non-physical, like, it really does feel like you're literally learning how to tune into a microfine level of reality and feel the quality of that vibration. It's just energy vibrating, and you learn to you become familiar with the different vibrations, like the different, I just call it the texture of that, the energy at that level. You get used to that texture and the variations in that texture, and you get better at understanding what it means. And then furthermore, you get better at learning how to translate it into words or pictures if you're a visual artist, or music if you're a musician, or, whatever. But you learn how to get better at articulating it, at expressing it. There are so many different levels of the whole process of developing our psychic abilities. And most of the way that people talk about it is like kind of focused on receiving psychic information. But I think truthfully, at least in my audience, the majority of you are already receiving psychic information. Hopefully you can hear me okay, because I just realized my finger was covering the microphone. Hi, y'all. Okay, so that's the reason that I often close my eyes when I'm doing an Akashic reading. It's not because I can't. I used to practice. I feel like this is something I should never say out loud. It's so irresponsible. Okay, I will just say I used to practice the Akashic Records at a time when I was really, really busy, and it was extremely hard for me to find time to devote to it. Like I didn't have the time or the physical energy to sit and meditate. And yet I was totally, dedicated to developing my skills as an Akashic Records reader. And so I would practice while I was doing other tasks, while I was multitasking. And some of those tasks were tasks that typically require more of your executive functioning focus than what you would give to them if you were also reading the Akashic Records. I would just split my consciousness, and part of me would executive function and part of me would read the Akashic Records. And it's irresponsible for me to say that, so I'm not going to go into any further detail. But the point is that in order for me to do those activities where I was multitasking and practicing the Akashic Records at the same time, I 100% had to have my eyes open. And I had to have my brain focused on the physical task that I was doing. And yet I would let part of my brain go into the Akashic Records. You don't have to close your eyes. You're not going somewhere else. You're just tuning into a different level of reality that's already around you all the time. The Akashic Records aren't found in a different location. I personally, if you are into the Akasha or you join into the Akasha, I go super deep into the dimensions. And I've shared there that I personally see the Akashic Records or understand them to be at the 11th dimensional level. But that being said, the 11th dimension isn't somewhere else. The 11th dimension is here. All of the dimensions are here, but they are at different channels. It's like the different, I don't know. I mean, I know this is such an overused analogy, but it really works. It's like all of the radio stations are happening right now. Are you tuned into one of them? No, you can be tuned into two different radio stations, and you can learn how to hear both radio stations at the same time, but it's kind of preferable. It's just a way more enjoyable experience if you're tuned into one or the other, right? And you can put the majority of your focus on it. But just like the radio stations are all there already, they're all there. They're not in different locations. The dimensions are all here. The dimensions are bandwidths of frequency, and consciousness, the energy of consciousness, expresses itself differently according to different, you could call them rules, but they're not really rules. It's just like, I don't know, like you could say there are different rules underwater versus different rules in the air. You know what I mean? They're not really rules, like nobody put them in place. It's just that water behaves differently and things behave differently in the water than they do in the air. It's like that. So the different dimensions are already here. It's just that our bodies, our bodies and specifically our nervous systems are automatically wired to the third and fourth dimension. And then also, we're interfered with, like heavily programmed, traumatized, super, sort of like, we're like horses with those things on, so that they don't run away, or at very least horses with blinders so we can see part of the world and we can't see the rest of it. We're supposed to be able to see way more than we can see here, way more. But we're working with what we've got. But even with all of that stated, we absolutely have the ability to tune into these other dimensions. So the 11th dimension is the dimension where I understand the Akashic Records to exist, and yet the Akashic Records are all around us all the time. But one of my favorite analogies is the internet. It's not local to anyone. I mean, I know like cloud storage and stuff technically is spread across a whole bunch of massive giant servers all over the world. So it's not the perfect analogy, but like if you think about the internet or you think about our cloud storage, like on your device, right now I could pull up any number of documents, but they're not stored on my phone. They're stored in my cloud. That's what the Akashic Records are like. Okay, so it's an 11th dimensional frequency, but it is not somewhere far away. A lot of the work that we do to learn how to access the Akashic Records is attune ourselves to be able to spread our consciousness beyond the limitations of the third and fourth dimension, and to be able to attune ourselves to the 11th dimension. And the amazing thing is you don't have to go through the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th to get there. You just learn how to dial into the frequency of the 11th dimension. So, okay. Where do I want to take it now? I guess I'll bring it back to our psychic abilities and just say that when we're opening up and developing our psychic abilities, it's not about suddenly magically knowing everything. Like there's still kind of a weird misunderstanding around that. That like if you have your psychic abilities turned on, if you dare to call yourself psychic, you just somehow know everything, and there will be skeptical people that want you to prove it, and they'll just try and like rapid fire you, like drill you with questions to prove that you're not psychic. And that's just a very huge misunderstanding about how psychic information works. Of course, we don't know everything. How could you I don't know how I could function as a human being if I literally knew everything. I don't think I could take care of my kids. I don't think I could drive my vehicle if I knew everything. And even in readings, my intention is always to get better and better and better at readings and deliver the best reading that I can in that moment during that reading. I feel like in every single reading, I learn so much, and I can see how far I've come. Especially as I'm teaching others to become readers, I can see how far I've come and how much I have learned. And it's amazing for me to look back on it and be like, fuck, I didn't even know I was psychic. I didn't even know. It's just so funny. Anyways, I've come so far, and yet there are absolutely limitations to what I can tune into. It's affected by how tired I am, or if I'm hungry, or if I have to pee. It's very affected. I don't like to do readings when my kids are at home. I used to do them on the weekends. I can't do it anymore because if I hear William crying, it's just like, it snaps me right out of that mode. So, I'm still walking with one foot in each world. And so even to know everything about another person is so hard, even if you're an Akashic Records reader. We don't have to expect ourselves to just magically know everything. For me to tune in and to deeply read you, I have to separate myself from myself. I have to let go as much as I can of Amy. and move into your cloud so I can read your cloud. And the more I can let go of being Amy in those moments, the more I can read your information without coloring it or tainting it from my information. And yet, of course, that's still going to happen too, because I still am Amy. I still have like everything I pull out of your Akashic Records. First of all, I have to filter it through the context of my own psyche and my own bank of symbols that I have, collected throughout my lifetime, knowingly and unknowingly, which like right there puts a layer of my own self on it. And then I have to try and find the words to articulate it to you, which is why I've said before that it feels like in a reading, or even when I'm like doing, if I'm channeling information forward for the podcast or something, I feel like I'm bringing forward 10% of the information, maybe 20%. There's way more there than I mean, there's stuff that I see that literally doesn't fit into words at all. Even if I understand it. It's like trying to describe a dream. I mean, we all know that feeling when we're trying to relay a dream to somebody and we're like, it's in here. Like I understand it, but there's, it doesn't, there's nothing, there's no meeting of the two worlds. So when we're learning how to read the Akashic Records or just interpret psychic information in general, that's such a massively huge piece of it, is being able to sense, first of all, sense the other person's field in the case of the Akashic Records, or sense the field of whatever you're tuning into through your psychic abilities, feel the difference between yourself and that subject, and then separate yourself from yourself enough to mostly almost like become that person's field or that subject's energy field, whether it's an object or a location or a person or an animal or a plant or what have you. You're almost like working on becoming that more than yourself. And that right there, like, I feel like that's mostly where most of us need the guidance, is that part where you're learning how to distinguish between yourself and another. And then tune in on the level where you can start to describe things about the subject, the person or the animal or the object or whatever, but not based on the physical information you're receiving. And yet at the same time, sometimes physical information will come into it, and certainly in the way that we describe it. It's almost impossible for us to describe it outside of the context of like the physical world, because that's just where we all are. That's what we all understand together. So for example, if I'm tuning into somebody's energy and I'm trying to describe something, maybe I'll use descriptors such as warm and like soft and pulsating, which are they all relate to, our physical sense of touch. But that's because how else would we be able to understand what we're describing to each other? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean about the context. We all have our own context that we're going to filter something through. So we're doing our best to describe an energy that is not fundamentally physical. So there's that piece, is just learning how to tune into whatever you're focusing on in the first place, which again, also, like, I know people don't want to hear about meditation. I know. I get it. We're all busy. Like I just said, there was a time when I was learning to read the records and I didn't have the time. I was working 80 to 90 hour weeks. Plus I had an infant. Like, I did not have the time to meditate. And yet that's why I talk about contemplation and the necessity of like tuning into it, preferably every day or at least every few days. If you set the goal of every day and you don't quite hit the mark, then, at least if you're trying, you're like getting every few days. But we have to be patient with ourselves and not have this expectation that somehow we're just magically going to have our psychic abilities fully activated, and we're going to have total access to them, and we're going to understand how it works right away, and we're going to understand how to wield it. We're going to have control over it right away, and we're fully going to understand the messages that we get. Like, that is just not realistic. It just isn't. It's not the way it works. And even if you look at all of the tropes in our movies and our literature and our TV shows of somebody who's discovering their magic for the first time, even if they're from like a magic race, like even if it's like Harry Potter or something like that, they all have to work to develop that skill. They may have the innate ability there, and yet they have to dedicate themselves to practicing it. Otherwise, we do not experience results. Period. It's the same with every single skill that we want to learn in this reality. Any new skill, a new language, a new instrument, a new sport, like whatever thing it is, it's always the same process. You have to put in the time. You have to. If you want to experience the transformation. If you don't want to experience the transformation, you're just curious about it, then do whatever you want. But like I just shared on the podcast how full of a download I got this month. Full. It's so full that I could probably, like, I don't know, if I were a writer, I could write a whole story about it. It's that clear. The download is that clear. And yet I started reading the Akashic Records for the first time consciously and intentionally, knowingly in 2017. So that's years. That's years of working the Akashic Records and also being an Akashic Records reader, which I'll tell you what, reading for other people as a service. So I don't mean like reading for your best friend. I mean, reading for people as something that, like, an agreement that you've made with them, whether it's a money energy exchange or some other kind of energy exchange. Man, does that sharpen your sword. It sharpens your sword for sure. Because, you know, at least for me, like, I care. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I kind of have standards for myself. I don't want to bring through vague information that they could find anywhere. I really want people to walk away and be like, oh, okay, all right. There's some shit there that I can work with and carry forward. And so, like, tuning into somebody else rather than sitting at home and doing it by myself, always by myself and with myself, which is part of the process that I had to do. But instead of just staying there, using it in this way, like, pushed me beyond the, you know, probably the, like, plateaus that I would have hit if I had done it just by myself at home. But the point is that, I mean, at least for me, I knew this was my path. I knew it was. I knew. As soon as I heard the words Akashic Records, I was like, what now? Like, oh, that? I don't know what it is. Need to find out. And then found out what it was and was like, need to do this. And I did it, and I've been doing it ever since. And I know it is my path, so it kind of makes it easy for me to do it. But it's still something that I have to continuously, like, I had to continuously show up for, you know? And I think that's something that we misunderstand about our magic and about our psychic abilities. And I guess maybe I'll even talk about magic because I see that as being also its own category. So I am really understanding right now what our magic is. It's pretty fucking impressive. I'm excited. I'm working on my own. I can talk about what I understand it to be, but I'm in the process of bringing mine online. But our magic is more of like a force that we project outside of it. It's the same kind of idea that we've seen in terms of what magic is. And yet it is, it doesn't require wands. It's sort of like it blasts out of our hands, out of different parts of our bodies. Like, it's just an extension of our own energy that we have mastery over, mingling with the different sort of like elemental levels of this physically manifested reality. And with our magic, what I'm understanding too, very humbly, as I get these very clear downloads about what my magic is and how to work with it, I'm realizing, like, oh, my magic is literally little dormant embers, just like whispery ghosts of what my true abilities are. And it's, if I expect my magic to just bam, come online, like I'm going to be disappointed. And then if I allow myself to stay in that place of disappointment and discouragement and just be like, well, I guess I'm not magic, and just give up and walk away, I will never reactivate it. It's dormant. It's asleep. Like I have to wake it up. It's going to be all groggy and whatnot. I'm going to have to like feed it some breakfast, give it a minute, make it some coffee, like play with my magic abilities in a way that is respectful and co-creative, and, you know, not throwing a temper tantrum because they're not performing for me instantly just because I can remember what they are. It's going to take a lot of dedication. And I have a suspicion, I mean, it's based on my experience with the Akashic Records. It doesn't necessarily have to go this way, but at least I guess the expectation level that I'm at is that it's probably going to take me a few years of playing with it for it really to become kind of reliably, or to feel like I have a sense of mastery over it, and yet it would still even be novice mastery. I can tell when I tune into it and the truth of what we're able to do. It's just like, and I also don't make it mean anything about me. It has nothing to do with how evolved or unevolved I am, or how ascended or unascended. It's just like, where are we at as human beings in our collective, like if you take into consideration all of the assaults we've had on our psyches, on our nervous systems, on our physical bodies, on our belief systems, on our hearts, like we've just taken so many assaults for so long in order to separate us from our magic, that I feel like that's really what it is. It's just acknowledging that there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of trauma to work through. And like our magic has buried itself deeply on fucking purpose because it was not safe to use it. And furthermore, like it's like it wasn't safe to even remember that we had it. Like for a long time, it was safer in terms of survival to just completely forget that we had magic and just believe that we are muggles. And that's the reality of it. So then if my magic abilities are super dormant, then it doesn't really mean anything about me apart from like, oh, the human collective has been through some shit over centuries. Like I'll call it eons, over eons. Just in our current living memory, it's been centuries. But this isn't the first round of this whole thing that's going on here. So it's more just like working with where we're at. It's the same with manifestation. Like I see the possibilities of manifestation. I see why I'm being called to go deep into it and show others how to do it as well. And I can even still feel my own limitations and yet what manifestation can be. And it's just, the reality is like, if it's deeply dormant, if you feel like with manifestation or your psychic abilities, well, let's go with your psychic abilities. It's easier to articulate, but the same thing applies in both areas. But if you feel like you don't have psychic abilities, if you feel blocked, if you feel like maybe you're not psychic, that's a thought that you have because you're just like, I don't even know. I don't feel like I'm getting anything. It doesn't mean that you don't have psychic abilities. It means that yours is quiet and hard to access. Yours is buried very deeply and it's speaking in whispers. And so what it means is that you're going to have to spend more time on the foundations part of it in order to coax your abilities back to the forefront. That also doesn't mean it's going to take you longer to master your psychic abilities. It just means that the bulk of your time is going to be spent on the foundations, which a lot of people get discouraged about because they feel like it's boring. But then like with quantum leaps, once you have enough sort of transformation underway, like basically, even if you're spending a whole bunch of time on the foundations, let's say, just to use the example of like our grade schools, let's say you're in grade 1 and then you're in grade 1 again and you're in grade 1 again and you're in grade 1 again and you're like, what the actual fuck suck. Like, this sucks. And you know the glory is in grade 6, but you're like, God damn it. And it's so natural that we would get discouraged. But what happens isn't that you have to do grade 1 for like 7 years and then you can finally move on to grade 2, what happens is, like, you get so solid in grade 1 that by the time you've truly mastered grade 1, you're ready to go up to grade 4, 5, or 6. I don't know why it works that way. It just does. And so I kind of feel like that's what's going on with all of us. That's what's going on with me and my magic abilities, is like, I'm just going to have to be at grade 1 for probably a long time. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. I mean, that's just how I am. I'm personally like, I care. It's worth it to me. It's worth it to me to practice. It's worth me to hone it. And even still, as I say, practice and hone it, I mean, I genuinely wish that I had a disciplined meditation practice. I don't right now. I have in the past, and I don't right now. Again, I mean, I'm not working 80 to 90 hour weeks anymore, but you know, I have 2 little ones and I have a business and I've got other things going on that take up a lot of my bandwidth. So I'm not really doing it in the like seated sort of Jedi, like the Padawan in training kind of way. I'm doing it through constant contemplation, but I feel like that's just effective. It's just as effective anyway. I don't know. For me, it works for me. And I just like to constantly remind people of that, because I know we're super busy and it's discouraging. And like, sometimes you just literally feel like you can't take on another thing. And yet I feel like these are things that we have to put our time towards honing if we want to access them. And on the other hand, at the same time, they are things that are already coded in us. And so it takes effort, and yet it's not a complete uphill battle. It just takes like consistency and caring about it, caring enough to want to do it and to want to think about it, want to contemplate about it, want to sort of like keep yourself plugged into that world, even when you're busy doing other things. Okay, well, I don't see this snowstorm letting up at all. There'll be these patches where it clears up and I'm like, oh, maybe I can carry on with my plans. And then I'm sitting facing the water of the bay and I just see this huge storm cloud roll in. I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna have to go home. Okay, so I'm still in the middle of the birthday Black Friday mega sale. It goes all the way to the end of November, because why not? And all of the tarot and Akashic readings, the 2024 ones, are all sold out. However, I want to bring your attention again, mainly to Into the Akasha, which is at such a low price. It's the amount that you get at this price is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. It will not be at this low price ever again. I mean, I don't know, maybe next year at Black Friday, I'm sure I'll put it on another good price, but I don't actually know. Will I run another Black Friday sale? I have no idea. The point is, right now, it's on an amazingly discounted price at 60% off, and that includes the next live round in February, which I'm very excited about, because I feel like I have laid the foundation solidly enough in the past rounds of Into the Akasha that in this new round, which is also like going to be open to everybody who is already Into the Akasha. So even if you did past rounds with me, if you want, I mean, you don't have to, you never have to, but it is going to be open to you to join this next live round. So in the live round in February, most of it is going to be focused on actually practicing together as a group and going into the Akashic Records and feeling it out. That was one of the most effective things about this past live round that I did in the summer of this year. And I feel like I want to dedicate more time to it, because people really had experiences and I could give them feedback and I could work them through the limitations that they were experiencing. So I feel like if you're, okay, first of all, 60% off, like 60% off. But I want to say too, if you're just curious about the Akashic Records and you think like, you're like, oh, I'd kind of like to know, but I don't know if I'm actually going to do it. I mean, I've had people who've gone through the program and done that, and it's very frustrating to me because I know they're super psychic and I know they could do well, and they just straight up admit that they didn't ever practice. And I'm like, well, nobody is exempt from practicing. I certainly wasn't. I don't know what to say. But if that's you and you just feel like you're probably not going to practice, then just save your money. Save your money. Don't spend it with me. There are books about the Akashic Records. You can watch these live things that I'm doing here. Like, there are cheaper ways to satisfy your curiosity. But if you know that you want to read the Akashic Records and you want to activate your psychic abilities, you want to do this and you're willing to put in the time and you want the live support, you like the idea of having like a guided, supported experience in the Akashic Records, this is the program for you. That's the difference between my program and other programs. A lot of them are self-study. You can definitely succeed with self-study ones. All of the people, I'm pretty sure, all of the people who are in my Akashic Records training and certification right now are all like self-study students into the Akasha. Like, they didn't take a live round. They just did the self-study one. And they just practiced. Okay. So you can also succeed very well at the self-paced self-study one. But if you like the idea of having the sort of the accountability, the group energy, the live support, getting feedback, hearing other people's feedback, if you're going to grow through that experience, then this is the perfect program for you. And right now it's on self-study pricing, 60% off. For context, that's the full price of the round in February is going to be $1,444. I'm telling you, it's worth every penny. There's an insane amount of information, past modules, past bonuses, past Q&A calls, all the stuff that you get instant and forever access to in the library. And then you also get the live round. So it's going to be priced at $1,444 at full price in February. Right now, you get it for $577. It's just, if you are wanting to get in on this, this is the time to do it. This is absolutely the time to do it. And I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to meet all the people who have already joined. It's going to be phenomenal. And I can't wait to teach you how to do this. It's something I'm really good at. If you show up and you work with me, I'm really, really, really good at it. And then the other one I want to draw your attention to as well is my Akashic Records training and certification program, which is for people who are already accessing the Akashic Records. You don't have to feel super confident in it. You just have to feel like, okay, yeah, I think I'm already there. Like, I'm having some experiences. I feel like I'm there already. But you want to do it as a service for other people, a paid service specifically. So you want to build a business around it. You want to do something like what I'm doing, your own version, not just a repeat, sort of like cookie cutter replica of what I'm doing. But you do want to do it for other people. Akashic Holographic Mastery is my training and certification program that goes into all of that. So it goes into all of facilitating a reading for another person, what we're actually doing, like why you would do a reading, like what does it mean to be an Akashic Records reader? What is the truth of the service that we're offering to people? What is it all about? And then I go into, the different things that we can pull forward for people. We have incorporated group practice sessions where we have somebody come and we all go around and read for that person based on their question. Those are amazing. It also includes, I think, 12 examples of my own past readings so that you can hear where I was a couple of years ago when I was like fairly new in this, and orient yourself based on that, which my students have told me they're so grateful that I've shared those. They've gotten a lot out of it. There's just support calls for Q&A, and then there's all the business development modules. So just the reality of like how to find clients. Do I need a website? Do I have to do the social media thing? Which social media channel or channels should I pick? Testimonials. How long should my reading be? How do I ensure the best experience for my clients? Like, what are the 3D grounded things that I need to know in order to succeed in this business and start making money as soon as possible? It goes into everything that you would need I have spent an exorbitant amount of money on business trainings because I had no business experience when I started this. And there are some things that I was super, super good at right off the bat. Didn't have to learn from anybody. Some things that I paid a shit ton of money to learn from people, only to find out nobody was teaching it, and I had to figure it out for myself. And then there are other things that I did have to learn from other people, and I paid a lot of money for it. And then also I paid a lot of money for things that I was like, oh, I didn't even ever need to know this, but I thought I did because of the way people market things. Anyway, so I just want to I want to save you from having to do it the long and hard way that I had to do it if this path is for you. So that's my offering. That's also on 60% off. It's such a huge, huge savings, such a huge steal. Again, samesies, it's not going to be this price. Again, it's just not. The reason I keep raising the prices on these programs is because I keep rerunning them. And when I keep rerunning them, they just get better and better. There's more and more information access. There's more and more value there. So I'm not just arbitrarily raising the price. I'm reflecting how much is in there, how much I have put into it, and also the realities of how much it costs me in order to create and host this course. There's so much that goes into creating a program or hosting a program you can't imagine unless you've done it before. You cannot imagine. And so right now, these are the best prices that you'll get. Okay. That's it. Thanks for listening to my advertisement. I'm just looking at the comments, making sure I didn't miss anything. So I saw a couple go by. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm just going to go home now and do some other work. Guess I'm not driving anywhere. I hope you guys are having a day that's flowing more smoothly than mine. Thanks for listening. I love you. Bye.